I didn't find out my family was planning my sister's entire wedding at my $3.1 million vineyard because they sat me down and asked. I found out because I overheard my own mother laughing on the phone, saying, "Oh, don't worry, she won't say no. It's basically hers anyway," while my sister chimed in from the background about guest lists, seating charts, and how 300 people should fit easily. I stood frozen in the hallway, keys still in my hand, realizing they were talking about my vineyard, my business, my property. And the most insane part, they were planning the wedding without me. So tell me honestly, before you hear anything else, was I wrong for what I eventually did? Because to this day, my family says I destroyed everything, and I need to know if you would have handled it differently. I guess I need to start from the beginning, because nothing about this makes sense without context. I'm the older sister. I've always been the older sister, the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who followed rules, got good grades, and didn't need rescuing every 5 minutes. My younger sister, Lily, was the opposite. She was loud, charming, impulsive, and somehow always the center of attention. Growing up, if Lily broke something, it was, "She didn't mean to." If I made a mistake, it was, "We expected better from you." That dynamic never really changed, even when we became adults. After college, I didn't come from money. My parents were comfortable but not wealthy. Everything I have now, I built myself. I worked in finance for years, saved aggressively, invested carefully, and eventually took a terrifying leap to buy a struggling vineyard just outside a tourist, heavy wine region. Everyone told me I was insane. My parents said it was risky. Lily laughed and said it sounded boring, but I poured everything into it. Long days, sleepless nights, hands blistered from actual labor because I couldn't afford full staff at first. Slowly, painfully, it worked. The vineyard became profitable, then popular, then desirable. Weddings, tastings, corporate retreats. It wasn't just a vineyard anymore, it was my identity. By the time the property was appraised at $3.1 million, my parents suddenly became very proud. Lily suddenly loved wine. Suddenly, family dinners were full of jokes about how fancy I was now. I learned to smile through it. I always did. Lily, meanwhile, bounced between jobs and relationships. When she met Evan, we all thought maybe this time would be different. He was charismatic, wealthy, adjacent, worked in real estate and loved to talk big. He proposed fast, like 6 months fast. The family was thrilled. My parents were over the moon, and almost immediately, the wedding talk started. At first, it was harmless. Colors, dates, guest estimates. Lily casually mentioned one night at dinner that vineyards make beautiful venues. I nodded and said yes, they do. That was it. No offer, no invitation, just a polite statement. Apparently, that was all the permission they needed. The day I overheard the phone call, I had just come back from the vineyard after dealing with a broken irrigation line. I was exhausted, dirty, and mentally drained. Hearing my mother casually promise my property to my sister felt unreal, like I had stepped into someone else's life. I didn't confront them immediately. I needed to hear more, because part of me couldn't believe it. Over the next week, I listened. I listened as Lily talked about how the ceremony would be. Under the big oak near the south slope. I listened as my dad discussed parking logistics for guests. I listened as my mom talked about catering needing access to the prep kitchen. My kitchen. Every detail was planned as if it was already decided, as if I was just a background character in my own life. Finally, I confronted Lily. I tried to be calm. I told her I heard what they were planning and that no one had asked me. She laughed. Actually laughed. She said, "Oh my God, I thought you knew. I mean, it's perfect, and you don't even use it every weekend." That sentence broke something in me. She said it like I was hoarding a toy, not running a business. I told her clearly that I wasn't comfortable hosting a 300-person wedding for free during peak season with zero discussion. She rolled her eyes and said, "Wow. I knew money changed you, but this is cold." By the end of the conversation, she was crying, accusing me of not loving her, and somehow I was apologizing just to end it. My parents got involved immediately. They said family helps family. They said it was one day. They said I could write it off as marketing. My dad even said, "You'll make money from the exposure." As if exposure pays staff overtime, repairs damage, or replaces lost bookings. I explained all of that. They didn't listen. What hurt most was realizing they never saw my vineyard as mine. To them, it was a family asset I happened to manage. The more I resisted, the more they framed me as selfish. Lily stopped speaking to me entirely. My mom cried every time my name came up. Extended family started messaging me, saying things like, "Your sister deserves her dream wedding." No one asked what I deserved. Eventually, the pressure became unbearable. So I said something vague. I said we'd talk about it later. That was my mistake. They took that as a yes. Weeks passed. I started noticing strange things. Emails from vendors asking about access times. A planner asking about power hookups. I hadn't approved any of it. When I confronted my mom again, she said, "We're just getting things ready. You don't need to stress." That's when I realized this wasn't about miscommunication. This was about entitlement. I set a boundary. I sent a group message. I said, clearly, that unless a formal contract was signed, with full costs covered, the Vineyard would not host the wedding. I explained insurance, staffing, lost revenue. I kept it professional. Lily responded with one sentence. "I can't believe you're doing this to me." The family fallout was immediate. I was uninvited from dress shopping. My parents stopped calling. I heard through an aunt that Lily was telling people I was jealous. Jealous. Of what, I don't know. Here's where things get complicated. A week before the wedding, I found out they hadn't changed venues. They were still telling guests it was at my vineyard. They were still planning. I confronted my parents again, and my mom said, "They're already sending invitations. What do you expect us to do?" That's when it hit me. They were betting on me caving at the last minute. They were betting that I wouldn't dare cause a scene. So that was the situation I was in. My family had planned a massive wedding at my vineyard without permission, without a contract, and without paying a single dollar, fully expecting me to fold when 300 guests showed up. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause for a second and put yourself in my shoes. If this was your business, your livelihood, and your own family treated you like this, what would you have done? When I left off, my family was fully committed to the idea that my vineyard was my sister's wedding venue, whether I agreed or not. Invitations had been sent. Guests had been told. Vendors were booked. And everyone involved seemed to believe that at the end of the day, I would just give in, because I was the reasonable one. I didn't sleep at all that week. Every night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios in my head. If I allowed it, I'd lose tens of thousands in peak season revenue, risk damage to the property, and set a precedent that my boundaries didn't matter. If I didn't allow it, I would be the villain of the family forever. Either way, I was going to lose something. The only question was what I was willing to sacrifice. I tried one last time to be an adult about it. I called Lily directly. I told her calmly that this was spiraling, that I was serious about needing a contract and payment, and that if those things didn't happen, the wedding could not take place at my vineyard. She didn't even let me finish. She screamed. She said I was humiliating her. She said she had already told Evan's family it was my vineyard and they were impressed. She said I was ruining her once, in a lifetime moment. Then she said something I will never forget. She said, "You owe me this. You've always had everything." I sat there in silence after she hung up, shaking with anger. Everything. She didn't see the years of grinding, the risks, the fear, the loneliness. She saw the end result and decided it meant I had been handed a life on a silver platter. That was the moment something hardened in me. I realized no amount of explaining would change how she saw me. So I stopped explaining. Instead, I prepared. I called my lawyer. I explained the situation in detail. He was horrified. He told me very plainly that allowing an event of that size without a contract and proper insurance would be reckless. He helped me draft a formal cease and desist letter stating that the vineyard was not available for the event, and that any attempt to trespass would result in legal action. Sending that letter felt surreal. This was my family, but it was also my business. I sent it to Lily, my parents, and the wedding planner. The response was nuclear. My mom called me sobbing, saying I was threatening my own sister. My dad accused me of choosing money over blood. Lily posted vague things on social media about betrayal and narcissistic siblings. Extended family took sides loudly and publicly. I became the villain in a story where I had simply said no. The wedding weekend arrived anyway. I wish I could say that part of me hoped they would come to their senses. But deep down, I knew better. On the morning of the wedding, I drove to the Vineyard early. The sun was just coming up, casting that soft golden light across the rows of vines. Normally, that sight filled me with pride and peace. That day, my stomach was in knots. I had hired private security. That decision alone felt insane to explain to people, but I knew I needed it. I also notified local authorities in advance about the possibility of trespassing. I hated every second of it, but I refused to be ambushed. Around 10 in the morning, the first cars started arriving. Guests in suits and dresses pulled up, smiling, laughing, congratulating each other. They stepped out, looked around, and then looked confused when security informed them that this was a private event space and there was no wedding scheduled. Some guests argued, some laughed, thinking it was a joke. Some pulled out their phones to call Lily. By noon, chaos had fully erupted. I was inside the tasting room when Lily arrived. She stormed in, still in casual clothes, her face red with fury. She screamed my name so loudly it echoed. She demanded to know what I had done. I told her calmly that I had done exactly what I said I would do. I had protected my business. She called me heartless. She said I embarrassed her in front of Evan's entire family. She said she hoped I was happy. Then my parents arrived. My mother collapsed into a chair, crying hysterically. My father stood there, jaw clenched, looking at me like I was a stranger. He said, "I didn't raise you to be like this." That one hurt more than anything, Lily said. I told him quietly that he also didn't raise me to be used. Outside, guests were leaving. Some were angry. Some were confused. Some were sympathetic. The wedding planner was frantically making calls, trying to salvage something. Eventually, they relocated the ceremony to a hastily booked hotel ballroom 2 hours away. It was cramped, rushed, and nothing like Lily had envisioned. I didn't go. That night, my phone exploded with messages. Some people called me cruel. Some said I was justified. Lily sent me a single text that said, "I'll never forgive you." I cried harder that night than I had in years, not because I regretted my decision, but because I finally accepted that my family might never see me the way I needed them to. The aftermath was long and messy. For months, my parents barely spoke to me. Holidays were awkward or skipped entirely. Lily cut me off completely. I heard through others that her wedding photos were bittersweet, that people whispered about what happened, that Evan's family was embarrassed. Somehow, all of that was blamed on me. But something else happened too. The Vineyard thrived. That same weekend, I hosted a paid corporate retreat that went flawlessly. No damage, no drama, just professionalism. Word spread quietly in my industry that I ran a tight ship and didn't cave under pressure. It earned me respect I hadn't even realized I was lacking. Over time, the noise faded. Lily eventually reached out, not to apologize, but to move forward. We are civil now, but we are not close. My parents and I have rebuilt something resembling a relationship, though the dynamic has permanently changed. They no longer assume, they ask, or at least, they hesitate. Looking back, I don't feel proud of how things ended, but I don't feel guilty either. I learned something painful, but necessary. Loving your family does not mean surrendering yourself to them. Boundaries don't make you selfish. They make you sane, so that's the whole mess. That's how 300 guests showed up to my 1 million Vineyard for a wedding that never happened, and how I became the villain in my own family's story just for saying no. If you were on my side, hit like. If you think I went too far, tell me why in the comments. Subscribe for more stories like this, because trust me, life always finds new ways to surprise you. and I'll see you all in the next story.